Imagine that you're a black 25-year-old community college student living in Alabama. You're struggling to pay your bills and you live with your parents. And let's also assume that you're also not a particularly ethical person. So in desperation, you start thinking about robbing the spa where you work part-time. You even Google search terms like how to steal money from a cash register without getting caught. First tip is don't Google it. That's the first way to not get caught. A little late for that now. That's how bleak things are, though, for you. So what do you do next? Systemic white supremacy won't let you get a better job or make more money. You know how that is. So what can you do if you're a member of the BIPOC community who needs cash and validation fast, but you aren't getting either of those things? Do you rob a bank? Do you make up some sob story and try to get on American Idol? What do you do? According to the experts who have studied this question for a long time, there's one thing you definitely should not do, and that's fake your own kidnapping. Because if you did that, you'd never get any kind of attention or raise any amount of money because Americans are so racist that they wouldn't care about your disappearance. As the Washingtonian put it recently, quote, missing black people don't receive widespread media coverage. The Harvard Political Review double-checked that finding, and they agreed with it, quote, missing black and indigenous people do not receive the same attention and public support as white women with similar stories. The Washington Post independently looked at all the available evidence, and they concurred with Harvard. They reported that, quote, the media loves missing white women. Black women are already missing from public view. That's true. I mean, you'd never see any black women anywhere, ever. Not in media, nowhere. Totally true. So the expert consensus is clear. If you're a person of color, quote unquote, specifically the black color, then don't pretend to get kidnapped for attention. It would be pretty embarrassing, actually, like when someone quits their job and no one at work even notices. That's how evil this country is. Now, if there are any experts or left-wing activists who really believe any of that, then the drama that played out over the past week in this country must have come as a tremendous shock to them. Because here's the recap, in case you missed it. On July 13th, a black community college student named Carly Russell suddenly disappeared. Russell called 911 while driving on the interstate, and she said she was following an abandoned toddler who was walking along the road for some reason. She told the dispatcher that she followed this toddler in her car for about 600 yards. This toddler was walking along the interstate for 600 yards. And then Carly Russell called her brother's girlfriend and then got out of her car to save the child, at which point she screamed into the phone and vanished. Very dramatic. What happened next? Presumably, based on the expert insight from Harvard and the Washington Post, the story would just disappear into the ether, just like Carly Russell herself. No one would ever mention the name Carly Russell ever again. Nobody would care. That's the expected result, per the scholars. But what actually happened is that the entire news media lost its collective mind and covered Carly Russell's disappearance nonstop. Here's just as one example, a package from the local NBC station, which aired within a day of Carly's disappearance, and here's what they say about it.
A woman in Hoover near Birmingham has vanished after spotting a toddler alone near the side of the interstate.
Police say 25-year-old Carletha Russell was on the phone with her family when they heard her scream and then nothing else, even though her phone stayed on the line. Her car was found near the spot where she reported the toddler.
That's where we find Patsy Douglas from our NBC affiliate in Birmingham.
This is where Carly was last seen, here on I-459 near John Hawkins Parkway in Hoover. On Thursday evening, police say Carly called 911 saying a toddler was walking down the side of the interstate. After calling police, she stopped to get the child and called a family member. When police arrived, they found her car and belongings nearby, but no sign of her or the child. Family members now on the search for Carly, her parents desperate for her return.
To keep applying the pressure to keep this thing going. We really want this to blow up. We want the word of the day to be Carly.
We really want this to blow up, says Carly's family, and blow up it did. It wasn't long before media reports indicated that a witness had seen a vehicle with a male with a light complexion near the scene of the crime, which makes sense because white people are always out hiding in the woods, sending out toddlers as bait to lure in black community college students. It happens all the time. That version of events checked out with ABC News and their rigorous editorial standards. ABC ran this package as the search for Carly continued. Watch.
Police in Alabama are searching for a woman who vanished under strange circumstances after she stopped to help a child she saw walking all alone along an interstate. 25-year-old Carletha Nicole Russell called 911, then told a family member about the child. Police say that family member on the phone lost contact with Russell even though the line remained open. Responding officers then found Russell's car, but not her phone. Nor the child.
Now, notice that ABC, like NBC, just comes out and assumes that Carly's story is true. They report, as if it's beyond dispute, that Carly, quote, stopped to help a child she saw walking all alone along the interstate. They'll tell you there's a real missing child out there without verifying it in any way. That's remarkable for a few reasons, but the main reason it's remarkable is that it makes absolutely no sense. For one thing, the interstate where Carly Russell pulled over wasn't some desolate stretch of country road. There were a bunch of cars and trucks driving by at the time of her supposed kidnapping. Here's footage of Carly pulling her car over, and you can see it here. And what you see there in the footage is that many vehicles are driving by as Carly puts her hazards on to find the phantom missing child. Why did none of the drivers of any of those vehicles call 911? Why was Carly Russell the only person who seemed concerned that a toddler was somehow managing to run 600 yards down the side of an interstate at night? I mean, that's the kind of thing that people will notice. Why was there no evidence of any kind of struggle once she pulled over? Why did no witness see her being abducted? Before we could get answers to any of those questions, a couple days later, if you can believe it, Carly showed up at her parents' house totally unharmed. She told detectives that a white man with orange hair had kidnapped her, then took photos of her naked before she escaped. Carly's boyfriend, meanwhile, posted on social media that she had to fight for her life in order to secure her freedom. Then shortly afterwards, he took down that post for reasons that remain unclear. Now, at this point, if you're not deranged or hopelessly naive, you're probably getting a little suspicious. But rather than question any of this, the Today Show on NBC held a sympathetic, exclusive sit-down interview with Carly's parents. And it was just like, if you remember that Robin Roberts interview, the infamous one with Jussie Smollett back in the day, where the deeply concerned reporter nods as she's fed obvious lies. So here are some highlights from this latest version of that kind of interview. Watch.
That moment you all first laid eyes on her again, what was it like?
To me, just so much joy.
This morning, in an exclusive sit-down with NBC News, the parents of 25-year-old Carly Russell are speaking out, describing the moment their daughter appeared on their doorstep after being missing for more than 48 hours. Her parents declined to share what their daughter told them, citing the ongoing investigation.
And can you tell me what happened Saturday night? Did you just get a knock at the door?
Anything leading to the case itself, we can't discuss that.
But they say speculation about the circumstances surrounding Carly's disappearance are only making things worse.
She's having to deal with the trauma of people just making completely false allegations about her.
And when I talked to you all on Saturday, you also said your daughter is a fighter and she would find a way back to you.
I felt that in my heart.
Is that what happened?
She did. She found her way back to us. However, we can't discuss the details of that.
But they say one thing is clear.
Do you believe she was fighting for her life?
Oh, she definitely fought for her life. There were moments when she physically had to fight for her life, and there were moments when she had to mentally fight for her life.
Mentally fighting for her life. She should have done a lot more mental fighting before this whole plan was hatched, I think. So the parents definitely can't talk about the case for some reason. But they can say, even though they're sitting down for an interview about the case, but we can't talk about the case. Okay. And what they can say is that they don't want you to say anything. They don't want you to say anything about how strange and totally unbelievable their daughter's story is, because that's inflicting trauma on her daughter and on all of them. But the mother can say that her daughter had to mentally fight for her life, whatever that means. The bottom line is that they want you to know that they're the victims. Is that true? Well, shortly after the interview, we learned that Carly had been running some pretty suspicious Google searches on her phone the day of her disappearance. Apparently, Carly stole some stuff from her job and then Googled a well-known action movie about a woman's kidnapping, the movie Taken, with Liam Neeson, which, by the way, in that movie, if you remember, Liam Neeson's daughter was on the phone And then she let out a scream when she was kidnapped, which is the same thing that happened with Carly Russell, allegedly. Only question, I don't know, the person that was on the phone with Carly Russell, did that person then give a speech about how he has a particular set of skills and he will find you and kill you? I don't know. She also searched for information about Amber Alerts ahead of time. She had a premonition. She was going to go missing, so she looked up Amber Alerts. And when cops wanted to talk to her for some follow-up questioning, they haven't been able to get in touch with her. Maybe the white man in orange hair kidnapped her again. Police say that there's no evidence that any part of Carly's story is true. They haven't been able to confirm any part of it at all. And yet the media is still reluctant to point in the direction of the obvious truth here, which is that the whole thing obviously is a hoax. Even the local police chief is too afraid to come out and say that. Here was his statement, quote, "We want to talk in facts, and I do think it's highly, highly unusual to the day that someone gets kidnapped, that's 7 hours or 8 hours before that they're searching the internet, Googling the movie Taken about an abduction. I find that very, very strange," he says. Well, there you have it. It's very, very strange. Well, actually, it's not very strange at all. It's totally predictable. When you transform victimhood into a currency, when you reward the most unserious and corrupt people for their behavior, then you get more corruption. Now, I'm going into some detail here about all of this because it illustrates something that's not talked about enough. What we're seeing in this case, and in so many others, is pathological lying from virtually everyone in the media and government. The powers that be, they don't just play on our fears for ratings or clicks. Instead, they actively generate false fears in order to distract us from the things that we should be worried about. Black women are getting kidnapped randomly by white terrorists who use toddlers as bait. They basically just spent the last week saying almost exactly that. They're doing this right out in the open, and they're not ashamed of it. We're days away from the Durban Accords, the greatest threat to the U.S. dollar's global dominance in the past 80 years. On August 22nd, BRICS nations are expected to announce the launch of a new international supercurrency fully backed by gold or other commodities. This is part of their long-term plan to supplant America and the dollar as cornerstones of the global financial system. You can protect your IRA or 401k from the fallout of this landmark announcement by diversifying with gold from Birch Gold. Historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, which is right now. When currencies fail, gold is a safe haven. How much more time does the dollar have? Well, you can protect your savings with gold. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. You can find out why by texting Walsh to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold. If a central bank digital currency becomes a reality, it'll be nice to have some gold to depend on. Again, text Walsh to 989898. You know what company is looking out for you when they actually upgrade your service and don't charge you for it? This is great news for new and current Pure Talk customers. Pure Talk just added data to every plan and includes a mobile hotspot with no price increase whatsoever. If you've considered Pure Talk before but haven't made the switch, take a look again. For just $20 a month, you'll get unlimited text talk and now 50% more 5G data, plus their new mobile hotspot as well. This is why I love Pure Talk. They're veteran-owned and only hire the best customer service team located right here in the USA. Most families are saving almost $1,000 a year while also enjoying the most dependable 5G network in America. Remember, you vote with how you spend your money, so stop supporting woke wireless companies that don't support you. When you go to puretalk.com/Walsh, you'll save an additional 50% off your first month because they actually value you. That's puretalk.com/Walsh. Pure Talk, wireless for Americans, by Americans. CNN just published what they call a news article that's the perfect example of this kind of thing. Here's the first sentence of this objective news item. Quote, "Mass shootings in major metropolitan areas in the United States disproportionately affect black people, and structural racism may play a role." The authors complain in the study that, quote, "racial and ethnic minority populations are significantly more likely to be victims of mass shootings." According to CNN, quote, "The study found that in areas with higher black populations, mass shootings are likelier to occur compared to communities with higher white populations. There are also more black people injured and killed when mass shootings take place, according to the findings." Now, the message is that blacks in the city should be worried about racism because of all the mass shootings. And what, of course, they don't mention is that the overwhelming majority of the so-called mass shootings in cities are perpetrated by black people or Hispanics on occasion. And that's almost everyone who's committing mass shootings in cities. We don't have to guess about that either. The New York Times ran the numbers a few years ago. They looked at every single mass shooting event that's occurred in the United States, everywhere, not just in the cities. And that was in 2015. And roughly 75% of all the mass shootings were perpetrated by black people. Of course, CNN doesn't say that anywhere in the article. Instead, they tell scary ghost stories about systemic racism so that we don't focus on the very real problem, of the black community killing itself. And they cite experts as cover so they don't have to reckon with the obvious absurdity of all of this. All they care about is generating the fear, the false fears about things that don't exist. And it's not just the media that's doing this. This is a social cancer, and therefore it's much bigger than corporate media. It's endemic in politics as well. You might have seen the Democrats just ran an ad that's gotten a lot of attention, and this is an ad in Ohio. And in the ad, they're claiming that Republicans want to take away birth control. They made an advertisement that was, intentionally very salacious and also dishonest because it's supposed to generate all this attention, which it successfully did. But here's the ad.
Do you have a condom?
Yeah. No! Sorry, you can't use those.
What are you talking about? Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're banning birth control.
This is our decision, not yours. Get out of our bedroom.
I won the last election. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to watch and make sure you don't do anything illegal.
Some great acting there as well. Phenomenal. Now, not that it needs to be said, but there is no effort in Ohio or any other state to ban birth control. This is an entirely delusional concern, a fear based in nothing but their own imaginations on the left. The truth is that most conservatives won't even speak honestly about the dangers of birth control, though they should, much less try to ban it. The bill they're talking about in that ad, it's Prop 1. And guess what? It has nothing to do with birth control at all. It's about the procedural requirements needed in order to pass an amendment to the state constitution. That's what the bill is. So why are Ohio Democrats lying about Prop 1 and Republicans' supposed scheme to outlaw birth control? They're warning about evil Republicans coming to steal your birth control so you don't focus on other things. And when it comes to birth control, they don't want you to focus on the fact that basically everything, STDs, divorce rates, unwed pregnancies, has gotten worse since birth control was invented. Take a look at the divorce rates from 1965 and 1975 sometime. The divorce rate doubled 5 years after the pill was first made available. Again, they're feeding you invented problems so you don't notice the real ones. They're giving you fake things to be afraid of so you don't worry about the real threats. Hollywood and entertainment writers do the same thing. The Atlantic magazine just published a think piece on the new Barbie movie, and we're getting a lot of think pieces about Barbie. And this one is entitled, "What's the Matter with Barbie?" Greta Gerwig's Barbie is a charming blockbuster adventure about the tribulations of simply existing as a woman in society. Yes, the tribulations of simply existing as a woman in modern American society. Left unmentioned in this article is that men kill themselves at more than 3 times the rate of women. They overdose far more often as well. According to the CDC data, as of 2021, men have a life expectancy in the United States of just 73 years old, whereas women typically live until 79. As Harvard Medical School put it, quote, "Men die younger than women and they're more burdened by illness during life. They fall ill at a younger age and have more chronic illnesses than women. For example, men are nearly 10 times more likely to get hernias than women and 5 times more likely to have aortic aneurysms. American men are about 4 times more likely to be hit by gout. They're more than 3 times more likely than women to develop kidney stones, to become alcoholics, to have bladder cancer. They're about twice as likely to suffer from emphysema or ulcers. Although women see doctors more often than men, men cost our society much more for medical care beyond age 65. When it comes to health, males are the weaker sex throughout life." That's what they said. Although calling it the weaker sex is obviously not a fair characterization. So even when we're listing all of the illnesses that men get, there's a take a shot at men at the end of it. And you're not supposed to think about that, just like you're not supposed to think about what's actually happening in black communities or what birth control actually does to women or why a struggling black community college student would lie about being kidnapped. You're also not supposed to think about the testimony of those IRS whistleblowers or the FBI document showing that Joe Biden is personally implicated in illegal overseas influence peddling operations. There's a media blackout on all those topics. Every power center in this country is willing to lie to you to your face as obviously as they possibly can to keep you from thinking any of these unapproved thoughts, to keep you afraid of the phantoms they've created. You know, one of the reasons why hoaxes like the Carly Russell case gain so much traction and seem apparently believable to so many people, at least at first, is that the media has laid the groundwork by telling us about an epidemic of hate crimes against black people and other supposedly marginalized groups. But it's all a lie. There is no such epidemic. You only need to look at the numbers to see the lie for what it is. For instance, when they insist, as they often do, that trans people are being murdered in hate crimes by the dozens every year, One quick look at the stats shows that in order to support that assertion, they're categorizing literally every single murder of a trans person as a hate crime, even though the data indicates that maybe 1 or 2 of the victims each year are killed for being trans. Not much of an epidemic. But the pathological lying is right out in the open now. The only good news here is that pathological lying is the easiest kind of lying to spot, and it's the easiest kind of lying to reject, therefore. What's needed is for people in power to actually do that, to reject this insanity, because if they don't, then, more desperate lunatics will start running into the woods pretending to be kidnapped. They'll take advantage of every weak-willed police chief and every corrupt media outlet in this country. We're already seeing that happening. It'll happen more often until it happens constantly, until you can't get away from it. Lies will become indistinguishable from reality. And once that happens, you don't have civilization anymore. You have something unrecognizable, something that you can never repair. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.